Dr. Alina Rodriguez had seen many strange things. During her 3 years working on the massive space station called New Horizon, but nothing prepared her for what she witnessed during the Third Galactic Peace Meeting. The station buzzed with activity. As ships from dozens of different worlds docked one after another, Alina watched from the observation deck as creatures had only read about in textbooks stepped onto the station for the first time. There were the tall, graceful beings from Crystallis, whose skin sparkled like diamonds. The aquatic people from the water world of Oceania floated in special bubble suits that shimmered with blue light. Even the rock-like mountain dwellers from Petra had come, their footsteps shaking the metal floors. But it was the arrival of the Velthian ship that caught everyone's attention. Their vessel looked like a giant silver flower floating through space, its petals opening to reveal the most elegant beings Alina had ever seen. The Velthians were known throughout the galaxy for their beauty and their amazing ability to read minds and feel emotions from far away. As the Velthian group walked into the main hall, Alina noticed something odd while the other aliens moved. Confidently and greeted each other with warm gestures, one figure stayed at the back of the group. This person was completely covered in flowing veils that moved like liquid moonlight. The veils were beautiful, decorated with tiny stars that seemed to twinkle on their own. But they hid everything underneath. Alina couldn't see a single feature of the person beneath those veils. Not their face, not their hands, nothing. It was like looking at a living ghost. The main hall of the station had been transformed into something magical for the meeting. Floating lights danced near the ceiling, and tables made from crystal grew right out of the floor. Representatives from 43 different worlds filled the space with colors Alina couldn't even name. Some had wings, others had tentacles, and a few seemed to be made of pure energy. But as Alina watched the interactions, something made her heart sink. Every time the veiled figure tried to join a conversation, the other beings would find excuses to move away, even their own people. The beautiful Veilthians seemed uncomfortable around them. When the veiled person walked past, Alina noticed how the other Veilthians would turn their heads or suddenly become very interested in their food. During the opening ceremony, each group was supposed to introduce their most important members. The rock people presented their strongest warrior, whose muscles could crush steel. The water beings showed off their best singer, whose voice could calm storms. The Veilthians brought forward their wisest scholar, their fastest pilot, and their most skilled artist. But the veiled figure remained seated alone at a small table in the corner. Alina realized with a shock that this person had to be someone very important. The decorations on their veils suggested royalty, yet they were being treated like they didn't exist. Alina found herself staring, not out of rudeness, but because she recognized something familiar in the way the veiled person sat. It was the same way she used to sit in the school cafeteria when she was younger, trying to look busy while hoping anyone, would invite her to join their table. The breaking point came during dinner. Alina watched as the veiled figure sat completely alone while hundreds of beings laughed and talked around them. Their shoulders were slightly hunched, and their hands rested carefully in their lap. Even though Alina couldn't see their face, everything about their body language screamed loneliness. When one of the younger Veilthians accidentally knocked over a drink near the veiled person's table, Alina saw something that made her angry. Instead of helping clean up the mess, the young alien quickly backed away with a look of fear on their face. Other Veilthians rushed over, but only to pull their friend away from the veiled figure. Leaving the spilled liquid to pool on the floor, Alina had had enough. As a scientist, she was supposed to observe and learn, not get involved in alien politics. But as a human being, she couldn't watch this treatment continue. She grabbed some cleaning cloths from a nearby service station and walked over to the lonely table. The veiled figure looked up as Alina approached. Even though she couldn't see their face, Alina felt like she was being watched very carefully. "Mind if I help with this mess?" Alina asked, keeping her voice gentle and friendly. The figure didn't speak for a long moment. Around them, Alina could feel other beings watching, some with curiosity, others with what seemed like horror. "You should not," came a voice from behind the veils. It was musical and sad, like wind chimes in a storm. "Your people will think poorly of you." My people sent me here to learn, Alina replied, kneeling down to clean the spilled drink. Right now, I'm learning that kindness is the same in every language. As Alina worked, she noticed that the veils seemed to shimmer more brightly, as if responding to emotion. The tiny stars woven into the fabric pulsed gently, creating patterns that reminded her of a heartbeat. What are you called? Alina asked, finishing with the cleanup and settling into the chair across from the mysterious figure. I am... There was a pause, as if the person was deciding whether to answer. I am Princess Lyra of the Velthian royal house, though few remember. That title anymore? Alina felt her eyebrows rise. A princess. She was talking to actual alien royalty, and yet this princess was sitting alone like she had some terrible disease. I'm Dr. Alina Rodriguez, she said. I study how different species adapt to living together, and I have to say what I'm seeing here tonight doesn't make much sense to me. Princess Lyra tilted her veiled head. What do you mean? Well, Alina said, looking around the room, everyone here is supposed to be working together for peace, right? Half the room is ignoring the other half, and everyone is ignoring you completely. How can we have peace when we can't even have a conversation? For the first time since their talk began, Princess Lyra laughed. It was a beautiful sound, but Alina could hear the sadness hiding underneath it. You truly do not know, do you? The princess asked. You have no idea why I am avoided, why I am feared. Alina shook her head honestly. No, I don't. But I'd like to understand if you're willing to help me learn. The princess was quiet for so long that Alina began to wonder if she had said something wrong. Around them, the noise of the celebration continued, but their small corner felt like a bubble of calm in the chaos. It has been many years since someone asked me that question, Princess Lyra finally said. Most simply assume they know the answer. Learned that assumptions usually make me look foolish, Alina replied with a small smile. I prefer facts. Facts, the princess repeated, as if tasting the word. Yes, I suppose you would need those. Alina waited patiently, sensing that this was an important moment. Something told her that Princess Lyra didn't get many chances to tell her own story. I will tell you, the princess said at last. But not here, not tonight. Tomorrow, if you truly wish to know, find me in the botanical gardens during the rest period. I will share the facts you seek. As Alina walked back to her quarters that night, her mind buzzed with questions. What could possibly make a princess so feared that her own people wouldn't sit with her? Why did everyone treat her like she was dangerous? And most importantly, why did Alina feel like she had just made the most important decision of her life? By simply choosing to be kind? She fell asleep that night, thinking about musical voices and shimmering veils, and dreaming of secrets waiting to be discovered among the artificial gardens of New Horizon Station. The next morning, Alina woke up with butterflies in her stomach. She had barely slept, her mind racing with thoughts about her mysterious conversation with Princess Lyra. Part of her wondered if she had dreamed the whole thing. But the memory of that sad musical voice felt too real to be imaginary. The botanical gardens on New Horizon Station were Alina's favorite place to think. The engineers had created something magical there, a huge dome filled with plants from dozens of different worlds. Purple trees from the ice planet Frost grew, next to golden flowers from the desert world of Sands. The air smelled like a mixture of vanilla, pine, and something sweetly alien that Alina couldn't name. Alina arrived early, choosing a bench near a small pond where tiny fish with glowing fins swam in lazy circles. She brought her tablet, pretending to work on research notes, but really, she was just nervous. What if the princess didn't show up? What if last night had been some kind of test that Alina had failed? But right on time, a familiar shimmering figure appeared at the garden entrance. Princess Lyra moved like water flowing, her veils catching the artificial sunlight that streamed through the dome. Even in this peaceful place, Alina noticed how other visitors quickly found reasons to leave when they saw the princess approaching. You came, Princess Lyra said. Settling gracefully on the bench beside Alina, her voice carried a note of surprise, as if she hadn't really expected Alina to keep her word. Of course I came, Alina replied. I've been thinking about our conversation all night. I have so many questions, I don't even know where to start. The princess was quiet for a moment, watching the glowing fish swim in their endless circles. Before I tell you anything, I must ask you something. Are you recording this conversation? Will you share what I tell you with your government or your scientific colleagues? Alina considered this carefully. I won't record anything without your permission. I won't share your personal story unless you want me to. But I have to be honest. If what you tell me could help other people, I might ask if I can use it. For good purposes. Honest, Princess Lyra repeated, and Alina could hear a smile in her voice. I had forgotten how refreshing honesty could be. Just then, alarms began blaring throughout the station. The peaceful garden was suddenly filled. With flashing red lights and the harsh sound of emergency signals, Lena's tablet buzzed with an urgent message that made her blood run cold. Attack on Trader's Haven, she read aloud. Pirates have destroyed the main station. Hundreds missing. All diplomatic ships requested for rescue mission immediately. Around them, other visitors to the garden were running toward the exits, calling out to friends and family. Alina started to get up, but Princess Lyra's gentle hand on her arm stopped her. Wait, the princess said. Listen, Alina paused, straining to hear over the chaos. From the direction of the main hall came the sound of raised voices, not panicked. Screams, but angry arguments. The rescue mission was already falling apart before it had even begun. They're fighting about who should lead the rescue, Alina realized. The rock people want to use force, the water beings want to negotiate, and everyone else is arguing about jurisdiction. Yes, Princess Lyra said sadly. This is what always happens. When crisis strikes, cooperation dies first. Alina felt frustrated. Watching precious time slip away while people argued, there has to be something we can do. Those pirates? Someone must know how they operate, how to track them. Princess Lyra stood up suddenly, her veils swirling around her like liquid starlight. The Void Reapers, she said, her voice sharp with certainty. They are the only pirate group bold enough to attack a neutral station. How do you know that? Lena asked, surprised by the princess's immediate knowledge. As I've studied them for years, Princess Lyra replied. When you are ignored and forgotten, you have much time to learn about the dangers that threaten peaceful worlds. Without another word, the princess began walking toward the main hall. Alina hurried to catch up, her heart pounding. Whatever was about to happen, she had a feeling it would change everything. The main hall was chaos. Representatives from different worlds stood in angry clusters, each group shouting their own solutions while refusing to listen to others. The beautiful crystal beings were flashing angry red colors. Aquatic people were making threatening bubbling sounds. Even the normally calm mountain folk were rumbling with frustration. At the center of it all stood Admiral Kane, the human military leader who was supposed to coordinate the rescue mission. His face was red with stress as he tried to get everyone to agree on a basic plan. Listen to me, he shouted over the noise. Every minute we waste here, more people die. But his words were drowned out by the arguing. Alina watched in horror as the different species seemed more interested in proving they were right than in actually saving lives. That's when Princess Lyra did something that shocked everyone in the room. She walked straight to the center of the crowd and spoke in a voice that somehow carried over all the noise. The Void Reapers use quantum displacement technology, she announced clearly. Their ships can phase between dimensions during their attacks. Traditional pursuit methods will fail completely. The entire hall fell silent. Alina could feel the surprise radiating from every being in the room. For many of them, this was probably the first time they had ever heard the veiled princess speak in public. Princess Lyra continued, her voice steady, despite what Alina now realized must be enormous pressure. They will have 3 ships maximum. 1 will stay at the attack site to gather prisoners and cargo. The other 2 will have jumped to dimension space, waiting to see who follows them. Admiral Kane stepped forward, his expression intense. How can you possibly know this? Because, Princess Lyra said simply, they have used this exact pattern in 17 previous attacks over the past 2 years. I have tracked each incident and analyzed their methods. The room erupted in whispers. Lena could see the surprise on every face, Even the other Veilthians looked stunned that their forgotten princess possessed such detailed knowledge. "If you're right," Admiral Kane said slowly, "then half our rescue fleet would be flying into an ambush." "I'm right, Princess," Lyra replied with quiet confidence. "But there is a way to counter their strategy. You need ships equipped with dimensional anchors to prevent their escape. And you need to approach from the quantum blind spot that exists 30 degrees below their scanning range." Alina watched in amazement as the princess outlined a rescue plan that was both brilliant and detailed. Every question the military leaders asked, she answered with precise information. It was clear that she hadn't just been sitting alone all these years. She had been studying, learning, preparing for a moment when her knowledge might actually matter. But even as the room began to buzz with new hope, Lena noticed something troubling. The princess's hands were shaking slightly and her voice had grown softer with each answer she gave. Speaking publicly like this was obviously causing her some kind of distress. Princess Alina said quietly, moving closer, "Are you all right?" "We'll be fine," Princess Lyra whispered back. "This is more important than my comfort." As the rescue fleet prepared to launch using the princess's strategy, Alina realized that everything had changed. The forgotten, feared princess had just proven that she was perhaps the most knowledgeable military mind in the room. But more than that, she had shown something Alina found even more impressive: the courage to speak up when lives were at stake. Even though it clearly caused her pain, for the first time since arriving at the peace meeting, Alina felt like she was seeing what diplomacy could really accomplish. Not through arguments or shows of force, but through one person choosing to share their knowledge for the good of others. As the ships departed for their rescue mission, Alina and Princess Lyra returned to the quiet garden. But now, Alina understood that the mysterious figure beside her was far more complex and capable than anyone had imagined. The question was, why had such an obviously brilliant person been cast aside and forgotten? That answer, Alina suspected, would be even more surprising than anything she had learned today. The rescue mission was a complete success. Admiral Kane's fleet returned 3 days later with every single prisoner rescued and 2 of the 3 pirate ships captured. The 3rd ship had tried to escape into dimension space exactly as Princess Lyra had predicted, but the dimensional anchor stopped them cold. Alina watched from the observation deck as the rescued families reunited, as tears of joy flowing freely. But what struck her most was how different the mood on the station had become. Where before there had been polite but distant interactions between species, now there was genuine warmth. The shared crisis had brought everyone together in a way that months of formal diplomacy couldn't achieve. And at the center of it all was the mystery that Alina couldn't stop thinking about: Princess Lyra. The veiled princess had single-handedly saved hundreds of lives, yet she had disappeared from public view the moment the rescue ships launched. Alina had barely seen her since that dramatic moment in the main hall. That evening, Alina found herself wandering the quieter sections of the station, hoping to run into the princess by chance. She discovered Princess Lyra in the least likely place possible, the children's recreation area, sitting on a bench and watching a group of young beings from different worlds playing together. "Mind if I join you?" Alina asked, settling onto the bench without waiting for an answer. "The children do not fear me," Princess Lyra observed, her voice soft with wonder. "Look at them. A young crystalline playing tag with an oceanic child, while a little rock person builds castles for them all. They see difference as interesting, not frightening." Lena watched the play session and had to smile. The kids had figured out creative ways to include everyone despite their vastly different physical abilities. The crystal child could create beautiful light shows, the water child could make amazing bubble formations, and the rock child built structures that amazed them all. "Maybe that's because children haven't learned to be afraid yet," Elena suggested. "Adults teach fear. Kids just see new friends." Princess Lyra turned her veiled head toward Elena. "You speak as if you understand something about being different," Elena laughed, but there wasn't much humor in it. "I grew up in a small town where being the smart kid who loved science made me weird. I spent most of my childhood eating lunch alone because I was more interested in chemistry sets than fashion magazines. Different is something I understand pretty well. Yet you became successful," Princess Lyra pointed out. "You earned respect for your knowledge. True, Alina agreed. But I had to leave my hometown to find people who valued what I had to offer. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed and tried to change minds instead of changing locations. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the children play. Alina noticed that Princess Lyra's veils seemed to shift color slightly, moving from silver to a pale blue that reminded her of moonlight on water. "You have questions, Princess Lyra?" said eventually. "I can sense your curiosity even without." "Telepathic abilities." "A million questions," Alina admitted. "But the biggest one is this. How does someone with your knowledge and insight end up? It's treated like a curse instead of a treasure?" Princess Lyra was quiet for so long that Alina began to worry she had pushed too hard. But finally, the princess began to speak. "Do you know anything about Velthian development?" she asked. A little, Alina replied. "I know your people develop telepathic abilities during adolescence. That emotional connection is central to your society." "Yes," Princess Lyra said. "For most Velthians, the awakening of telepathic powers is like learning to swim. It's difficult at first, but eventually natural and controlled. We learn to share emotions without drowning in them, to connect with others, while maintaining our own identity." Alina sensed there was a but coming. "But for me," Princess Lyra continued, "it was like being thrown into an ocean during a storm. When my abilities awakened, they came with something else, a connection to every emotion my bloodline had ever felt. Generations of joy, sorrow, fear, love, grief, all of it flooded into my mind at once." Alina felt her breath catch. "Overwhelming." "Overwhelming is too small a word," Princess Lyra said with a bitter laugh. "Imagine feeling the heartbreak of your great-grandmother when she lost her first child, while simultaneously experiencing your ancestors' terror during the first alien invasion, while also feeling the pure love your bloodline felt when they first learned to fly among the stars. All of it, all at once, every moment of every day." Alina tried to imagine what that would feel like, and couldn't. The sheer weight of so much emotion would be crushing. "People call it the weeping gift," Princess Lyra continued. "It happens perhaps once in 1,000 generations. The affected person becomes a living repository of ancestral memory and emotion. They can access incredible knowledge and wisdom, but at a terrible cost." "What kind of cost?" Alina asked, though she was beginning to understand. "Anyone who looks upon my face without these veils will experience what I experience. The accumulated emotional weight of centuries hits them all at once. For a Velthian, whose minds are already open to telepathic connection, it is devastating. Many go mad. Some die from the shock." Alina stared at the princess, pieces of the puzzle finally clicking into place. "That's why everyone avoids you. Not because you're cursed, but because you're dangerous to them." "Exactly," Princess Lyra said. "I am a walking emotional weapon that I cannot turn off. Every person I care about, I threaten simply by existing near them. So I learned to stay away, to hide behind veils, to become invisible." "But the knowledge you have," Alina protested, "your understanding of military tactics, of political situations, that comes from this gift, doesn't it?" "Yes," Princess Lyra admitted. "I carry the memories and experiences of brilliant military minds, skilled diplomats and wise rulers from across my family's history. But what good is knowledge if sharing it might destroy the people you want to help?" Alina's mind was racing. There had to be something they could do, some way to help Princess Lyra share her gifts without the terrible side effects. "Has anyone ever tried to find a solution?" she asked. "Some kind of shield or barrier that could protect others?" "Many attempts have been made," Princess Lyra said sadly. "But Velthian telepathy works on quantum frequencies that cannot be easily blocked. The emotion I carry resonates at the same level as consciousness itself." Alina stood up suddenly, excitement building in her chest. "What about human consciousness? We don't have telepathic abilities. Our minds work differently than Velthian minds." "What are you suggesting?" Princess Lyra asked, and Alina could hear curiosity in her voice. "I'm suggesting an experiment," Alina said, her scientific mind already working through possibilities. "What if the reason your gift is so dangerous to other species is because they have the telepathic receptors to receive the full emotional impact? But humans don't have those receptors." Princess Lyra stood as well, her veils swirling with agitation. Alina, you cannot possibly be suggesting what I think you are suggesting. Why not? Alina challenged. You said yourself that I'm different from the others. I approached you when no one else would. I can be near you without feeling overwhelmed. What if that means something? It would be too dangerous, Princess Lyra said firmly. Even if you were somehow immune to the emotional impact, there could be other effects we don't understand. And what if there aren't? Lena countered. What if this is exactly what we need to figure out how to make your gift helpful instead of harmful? Elena could see the princess struggling with the idea. The hope in her posture was obvious, but so was the fear. I have been alone for so long, Princess Lyra whispered. I do not think I could bear causing harm to the first person who has shown me genuine kindness. Alina stepped closer, close enough that she could see the veils moving with the princesses. Breathing then. Let's make sure that doesn't happen. We'll be careful, we'll go slowly, and we'll stop the moment anything feels wrong. After a long moment, Princess Lyra nodded slowly. Tomorrow night, she said. Meet me in the botanical gardens after the station goes to sleep mode. If we're going to attempt something this foolish, we should do it where we won't be interrupted. They parted ways. Alina felt a mixture of excitement and terror coursing through her veins. Tomorrow night, she might become the first person in generations to see the true face of the veiled princess. The question was, would she live to tell about it? Alina barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she imagined what might happen in the botanical gardens. Would she see the princess's face and lose her mind? Would the emotional weight of centuries crush her consciousness? Or would her theory be right, that human minds were different enough to survive what had destroyed so many others? By the time the station shifted to sleep mode, Alina was already waiting in the gardens. The artificial lights had dimmed to simulate nighttime, and the alien plants seemed to glow with their own soft light. The place felt magical, like somewhere important things were meant to happen. Princess Lyra arrived exactly at midnight, moving like a silver ghost between the trees. Alina could tell she was nervous. Her veils shimmered more rapidly than usual, and her normally graceful movements seemed uncertain. You came, the princess said, and Alina could hear surprise in her voice. Did you think I wouldn't? Lena asked. Gently, I hoped you would reconsider, Princess Lyra admitted what we were about to attempt. Alina, in all the centuries since the first weeping gift appeared in my bloodline, no one has ever looked upon the affected person's face and remained whole, not even other Veilthians. Alina felt her heart pound, but she kept her voice steady. Then maybe it's time someone tried a different approach. They found a secluded spot near the pond, where the glowing fish swam in their endless circles. Princess Lyra sat on a bench, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Lena could see them trembling through the thin fabric of her veils. How do you want to do this? Alina asked. Slowly, the princess replied. The emotional resonance builds gradually. If you begin to feel overwhelmed, any strange emotions that are not your own, and any sudden intense feelings, you must tell me immediately, and look away. Alina nodded, her mouth suddenly dry. I understand. Right. No, Princess Lyra said firmly. You do not understand, and that is what terrifies me. You cannot comprehend what it feels like to carry the grief of a mother who lost her child in war, while simultaneously experiencing the rage of a warrior dying in battle, while also feeling the desperate love of someone saying goodbye forever. All of that, and 1,000 other emotions, hitting your mind at once. Alina thought about this carefully. You're right, I can't imagine it, but maybe that's exactly why this might work. I don't have the telepathic connections that make other species vulnerable. I'm like someone who's deaf trying to hear a sound that drives everyone else crazy. Princess Lyra was quiet for a long moment. Your logic is ... interesting. But logic and survival are not always the same thing. True, Elena agreed. But sometimes taking risks is the only way to change things. And Princess, you've been carrying this burden alone for so long. Don't you? Think it's worth trying to find someone who can share it with you? That seemed to decide it. Princess Lyra lifted her hands to the edge of her veil, then hesitated. Promise me something. If this goes wrong, do not blame yourself. The choice to try this is mine alone. I promise, Elena said. But I also promise that I'm going to do everything I can to make sure it goes right. The princess began to lift her veil, and Elena felt her breath catch. First, She saw pale hands that seemed to be made of moonlight, then a graceful neck that looked like it had been carved from the finest silver. And finally, ... Alina found herself looking into the most beautiful face she had ever seen. Princess Lyra's features were delicate and perfect, with high cheekbones, and skin that seemed to glow with its own inner light. But it was her eyes that took Alina's breath away. They were like looking into deep pools of liquid starlight, ancient and wise and infinitely sad. For a moment nothing happened. Alina waited for the crushing wave of emotion, the overwhelming flood of ancestral memories. But all she felt was wonder at the incredible beauty before her. "Alina," Princess Lyra whispered, her voice full of fear. "What are you experiencing? You're beautiful," Alina breathed. "You're absolutely beautiful." Princess Lyra's eyes widened. In shock? But the emotions? The ancestral memories? "You should be feeling the weight of centuries right now." Alina shook her head slowly. I feel like I'm looking at someone who's been hiding their light under a blanket for far too long. I feel sad that you've been alone, and I feel angry that people have been so afraid of you. But those are my emotions, my reactions to what I'm seeing." Tears began to flow down Princess Lyra's perfect cheeks. Tears caught the artificial moonlight and seemed to glow like tiny stars. "This is impossible," she whispered. "How can you look upon me and not be destroyed?" Maybe Alina said gently. "Because I'm seeing you, not just your gift. I'm seeing a person who's been brave enough to carry an impossible burden, who's saved hundreds of lives, who chose to trust a strange human with her deepest secret." Princess Lyra covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Do you know how long it has been since someone looked at me? Really looked at me. Not just the shape of my veils." Alina felt her heart breaking for this incredible being who had been so alone for so long. Without thinking, she reached out and gently took Princess Lyra's hands, pulling them away from her face. "Well, I'm looking now," Alina said firmly. "What I see is someone amazing." Their moment of triumph was shattered by the sound of gasps from the garden entrance. Alina turned to see a group of late-night visitors, diplomats from various worlds who had come to enjoy the peaceful gardens before sleep. They stood frozen in shock, staring at Princess Lyra's unveiled face. Alina felt the princess immediately tense beside her, ready to cover her face again. But something inside Alina rebelled against the idea of hiding anymore. "Everyone can see that she's not dangerous to me," Alina said loudly enough for all the onlookers to hear. "Maybe it's time to stop being afraid and start asking questions." Whispers started immediately. Alina could hear fragments of conversation in multiple languages, some shocked, some curious, some still fearful. But what mattered most was that no one was running away screaming. They were just ... watching. "Alina," Princess Lyra whispered urgently, "you do not understand what you have done. By tomorrow, everyone on the station will know about this." "Political implications. Good," Alina said firmly. "Let them know. Let them see that their fear was based on assumptions, not facts. Let them learn what I just learned, that you're not a curse to be hidden, you're a gift to be treasured." As the crowd in the garden grew larger, Alina realized that everything was about to change. Secret was out, and there would be no going back. Princess Lyra would have to face the galaxy's reaction to learning that the feared veiled princess was not the monster they had imagined, but looking at the beautiful, tear-stained face beside her, Alina felt certain they had made the right choice. Sometimes the most important discoveries happened when someone was brave enough to look beyond the surface and see the truth underneath. The question now was, would the rest of the galaxy be equally brave? The next morning, Alina woke up to chaos. Her communication device was buzzing with messages from colleagues, friends, and even complete strangers. News of what had happened in the botanical gardens had spread through the station like wildfire, and now everyone had an opinion about the human scientist who had dared to look upon the veiled princess. Some messages were supportive, praising Alina's courage and scientific curiosity. Others were harsh, calling her reckless and dangerous. But the message that worried her most came from Admiral Kane himself, a formal request to report to the main conference room immediately for an emergency meeting. Alina dressed quickly and made her way through corridors that seemed unusually quiet. She noticed how conversations stopped when people saw her. how some beings stepped aside to let her pass while others stared openly. She had become famous overnight, but she wasn't sure if it was the good kind of famous or the kind that got you kicked off a space station. The conference room was packed. Representatives from every world seemed to be there, along with military officers, scientists, and diplomats. At the center of it all sat Princess Lyra, still veiled, but somehow different. Alina could sense a new confidence in her posture, as if last night's revelation had lifted some enormous weight from her shoulders. Admiral Kane called for order as Alina took her seat. "We are here," he announced, "to discuss the events of last night and their implications for this peace conference." Alina's stomach dropped. It sounded like the beginning of a trial, not a discussion. The Velthian ambassador, a tall being with elaborate silver markings on his face, spoke first. "The human Dr. Rodriguez has interfered with matters she does not understand. Princess Lyra was veiled for the protection of all, not from cruelty, but from necessity." With respect, Alina found herself saying, standing up before she could lose her nerve, "I think last night proved that what we thought was necessity was actually just fear." Murmurs rippled through the room. Alina could feel hundreds of eyes on her, but she pressed on. "Princess Lyra's condition isn't dangerous to humans. Our neurological structure is different enough that we can interact with her safely, even if—" "That is true," called out a representative from the Crystal Worlds. "What you have done changes nothing. One species being immune does not solve the fundamental problem, doesn't it?" Alina challenged. "What if humans could serve as intermediaries? What if we could help Princess Lyra share her incredible knowledge and wisdom without putting others at risk?" Before anyone could respond, Princess Lyra herself stood up. The room fell silent immediately. "May I speak?" she asked, her musical voice carrying clearly through the space. Admiral Kane nodded. "Of course, Your Highness." Princess Lyra moved to the center of the room, and Alina noticed that she walked differently now, taller, more confident. "For 30 years, I have hidden from the galaxy because I believed I was a danger that needed to be contained. Last night, I learned that I was wrong." She paused, looking around the room at the assembled representatives. "Dr. Rodriguez did not just prove that humans are immune to my gift. She showed me something far more important, that isolation is not the only answer to being different." Alina felt her heart swell with pride and emotion as the princess continued. "I've spent decades studying the conflicts that plague our galaxy, learning from the memories and experiences of my ancestors. I know the patterns of war, the cycles of peace, the mistakes that lead to suffering. But what good is knowledge if it remains locked away behind veils?" The princess reached up and, to everyone's shock, began to remove her veil. Alina heard gasps throughout the room, but this time they were gasps of wonder rather than fear. Even veiled, Princess Lyra was clearly beautiful, but unveiled, she was breathtaking. "I'm tired of hiding," she declared. "I am tired of being ashamed of a gift that could help bring understanding to our troubled galaxy." The room erupted in nervous whispers, but Alina noticed something important. No one was collapsing in emotional agony. They were all too far away, too focused on other things, for the princess's telepathic field to affect them strongly. "Your Highness," the Velthian ambassador said urgently, "please, you must cover yourself." The risk, Princess Lyra interrupted firmly, "is in continuing to waste the knowledge I carry while people suffer from conflicts I could help resolve." Alina stood up again, an idea forming in her mind. What if we tested this scientifically? What if we set up controlled conditions to see exactly how Princess Lyra's abilities could be used safely? Admiral Kane leaned forward with interest. "What kind of test?" Alina's mind raced. "There's a territorial dispute between the Outer Rim colonies that's been going on for months. Small scale, but the same kind of conflict patterns that lead to bigger wars. What if Princess Lyra could help negotiate a solution?" "Absolutely not," the Velthian ambassador protested. "The risk—" "I will do it," Princess Lyra said quietly, but her voice carried such authority that everyone stopped talking. "I will do it, with Dr. Rodriguez serving as my intermediary and protection." The room exploded into arguments. Some beings thought it was too dangerous. Others worried about the political precedent. Still others questioned whether humans could be trusted with such responsibility. But Alina noticed something wonderful happening. For the first time since the peace conference began, different species were actually talking to each other, not just at each other. The crisis had forced them to work together to find a solution. Enough, Admiral Kane finally called out. We'll put it to a vote. All in favor of allowing Princess Lyra and Dr. Rodriguez to attempt mediation of the Outer Rim dispute? Elena held her breath as hands, tentacles, wings, and other appendages rose around the room. When Admiral Kane finished counting, his face broke into a surprised smile. The motion passes by a significant margin. Elena felt Princess Lyra take her hand, squeezing. Gently, are you ready for this? The princess whispered. Elena squeezed back. Are you with you as my partner? I think I am ready for anything. The mediation took place 3 days later. Elena and Princess Lyra worked together to create a new kind of diplomatic process. The princess would share her insights about historical conflicts and human nature, while Elena would communicate with the disputing parties and help them understand the deeper patterns that had led to their disagreement. It worked better than anyone had dared hope. Within hours, the two colonies had not only reached an agreement, but had discovered opportunities for beneficial cooperation they had never considered before. Word of their success spread quickly through diplomatic channels. Requests for mediation began pouring in from conflicts throughout the galaxy. The veiled princess, who had once been feared and avoided, was now the most sought-after peacemaker in known space. But for Elena, the greatest success was much more personal. She had found not just a professional partner, but a true friend. Someone who understood what it meant to be different, to carry gifts that others couldn't appreciate, to feel isolated by the very things that made you special as they stood together. On the observation deck months later, watching ships from dozens of worlds arriving for what had become a permanent peace-building station, Elena reflected on how much had changed. Do you ever regret it? Elena asked. Given up your privacy, your quiet life? Princess Lyra, her face uncovered and serene, smiled. How can I regret finding my purpose? How can I regret discovering that what I thought was a curse was actually the greatest gift I could offer the galaxy? Lena nodded, understanding completely. Sometimes the things that made you different weren't flaws to be hidden. They were gifts waiting for the right moment and the right person to help them shine. Their story had become legend throughout the galaxy, the tale of the human who dared to see beyond the veils and the princess who learned that even the loneliest gifts are meant to be shared. But for Elena and Princess Lyra, it wasn't a legend at all. It was just the beginning of the most important friendship either of them had ever known.